I want to dive into the violin that you're playing on because
Okay.
it's a wonderful instrument that you're playing on, and I want you to tell us on how you acquired it and what's it been like playing on this instrument for you.
Well, I'm sure many of your listeners remember Rene Morel, the great luthier and craftsman who passed away several years ago. He worked with Jacques Francais in New York. He was a dear friend, and he did all my adjustments and um, and work on the violin when it was open and when it needed a new bass bar. And but he kept telling me, he said, the only violin for you is a Del Gesù. That's the only violin for you. Everything else is, you have to play a Del Gesù. That's who you are. You have to, and it's just like, okay, stop. Okay, I hear you. Um, and then some things were taking place in my career. I was making several recordings, and I was playing some, I guess, some high profile dates, and I guess I realized, oh my gosh, maybe I should start looking. I was playing um, a Galliano violin that was loud. I don't think it had much nuance to it, but anyway, it served me very well. And so when one puts out word in the violin business that you're looking for Del Gesù, whoever has one will descend upon the town you're living in, and will treat you like royalty. And there were three Del Gesus available for sale at that time. One was the Vinyalski that Bain and Fushi had. The other was the Fountain that Rene was selling himself, and the other was the Ladenburg that was owned by Dietmar Machold. Um, of course, Rene, I think deep down wanted me to buy the Fountain. It was the violins back then were running between $3 and $4 million um, back in the late '90s, and so I didn't think about money first. I just wanted to find the violin. So we had all three violins in one place here in New York with the dealers, and the Machold actually owned his violin. The other two were working on consignment. And Joshua Bell came and helped me play the violins. He brought his, I think he had a Strat at the time. I had the Galliano. We played all the violins, and it was Rene who came up to me and said, "I would love more than anything to sell you the Fountain, but the violin for you is the Ladenburg. That's the violin for you." And it just reinforced my friendship, and his own honesty, which you don't always find um, in the dark corners of the violin dealership world. Um, and it just meant a lot to me, and I obviously felt very comfortable playing it. So that was the violin, and I was really fortunate because Dietmar um, didn't have to give the violin back to the owner. He owned it already, and he had just opened up a New York shop and wanted an American soloist to play his violin. Um, but that's when the hard part started. I thought that it was going to be a slam dunk to find the money. Though I've lived in New York for many years, I have a lot of fans in Georgia, I guess. So I wanted to tap into that "We're so proud of you, Bobby" thing. And I remember going to the head of a bank in Atlanta and thought that it would just be so easy just to say, "Could you please just buy this violin so I can promote your bank around the world?" And I got the answer was, first of all, why do you have to play a $3 million violin? Why can't you play a $1 million violin? And that's when the sweating started, and I realized, oh my gosh, I'm so out of my league. Um, I'm just in over my head. But the answer was, well, playing on a $1 million violin is like running with a pulled hamstring. I can't do everything I want to do. And he said, well, that's a great analogy, and we're proud of you that you play in Hong Kong, but we don't care about Hong Kong. We care about Georgia, and it just went on, and that didn't work. And there were several false starts until someone mentioned the idea of a limited partnership, which I didn't know um, anything about. And But at the end of the day, I'll try to explain this in a way that's clear. Uh, we found investors to buy shares in the violin. The violin was priced at 3.4 million, and we sold shares for 100,000 each. I played several private concerts for people that knew me and that were supportive of me. And at the end of the day, I realized that people were not investing in a violin, but were investing in me and my career. And that, I think that human touch helped seal the deal. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my career, because with a deal like this, it's locked in funds. They can't take their money out. It's a 25-year lease. I play the violin. I just extended it for another 5 years, so I'm going to be playing it for 30 years over the long haul. But that's what we have. We have 16 people who bought 34 shares, and we stay in touch, and they're supportive and come to all the shows, um, and yeah. So that's, and I know that some others, after reading about this, have tried the same process. It's just difficult because it's a long term endeavor.
Yeah, so there are a lot of nuances that I'm noticing, especially there's a new company, I think, based out of Washington, D.C. called Strumenti, and they have this very similar idea where they purchase instruments and they're looking for people to invest in those instruments with however many shares, like you suggested. And then, of course, in business, you want to have a return on investment, which means you want to, see the violin appreciate so that way all the shareholders can maximize on the returns naturally in business. But most importantly, what you're suggesting in this whole idea is that you're not just investing in the instrument, but you're investing in the person. I think that's very important in the world of business and also in the world of music, because if robots were playing our instruments, if a robot is playing a Galliano, it just wouldn't be the same. I personally think, and I think that's one of the
Correct.
really important nuances, that you have that human connection with your audience. I tell it to my students all the time that people are there to see you. They're not there to see what you're playing on. Although it is important to have a tool that can do what you want it to do, but in the end, it's about what kind of ideas are you presenting on stage to your audience.
Exactly. I mean, it's not when people ask, "Well, can I tell the difference between your Del Gesù and a modern violin?" I said, "Well, to me, it doesn't matter. I mean, what you see is and experience is a confident artist on stage, and I do feel I can run full speed with this violin."
You talked about the connection between you had with Renee and how, even though he had a violin, he actually suggested you getting the other one. Can you describe the connection that you felt with the instrument that you're playing on, this Guarneri, or sorry, yeah, the Del Gesù? Can you describe the connection when you're playing on all of these instruments back at the time? Like, what made this one stick out to you?
All three felt great under the
Hmm.
ear. I and they and they were not difficult to play. I could just dig in, but I needed his reinforcement. That's why he was there, obviously. Um, and I just, so many of us trusted him so much, including Perlman, who joked, after Renee died, he said, "Well, I'm quitting. I'm quitting the violin because I don't have Renee anymore."
Hmm.
We really, there were so many of us who depended on him. Uh, so it really was his, his almost absolutist um, reaction to the to this particular violin. I did notice that I did notice the sweetness of the E string, that was more Strad like than Del Gesù like. Of course, the G string certainly has the grit and the power and almost a subwoofer feel to it. But it was the sweetness up top that struck me.
Now, my question for you is, if you don't mind commenting on this, you're searching for violins, but were you searching for bows at the same time during this time, or did you have a bow that you're completely really comfortable with and sold on, and you just use that bow on all these instruments?
I know. I've played the same bow. It's a Hill made by Albert Bishop in 1939. I've played the bow. The bow worked beautifully with this violin, and I've been playing that bow for almost 40 years. Um, and I have a Da Cunha, which also works well on the violin. But no, the bow is, bows are, gosh, I mean, that's just, people have asked me, what is it about, what is it? And I don't, I mean, I play golf, and I use the analogy of a putter. It's just, it can be a $7, hand me down, and if it works, it works. And that's, I am not a connoisseur. I'm definitely a consumer, but I just know what I needed and what felt right, and I didn't need to go look for another bow.
Well, that's good for you. A lot of people spend a lot of times just searching for a decent quality bow that matches their instrument. I know we've had many violinists on the podcast who spend some time trying to do both at the same time. Like I know Angelo Zhang Yu from the Shanghai Quartet was talking about how he was saving all his money for this one bow. And they're like, okay, this bow was like a real game changer. And then he acquired a Strad loan, and now he's able to like combine two peas in a pod. It just fits, and it works really nicely.
Yeah. Oh, great. Yeah. I mean, everybody has their own journey. I mean, it's I just yeah. I've always just felt so great with this stick, and
It's just a
and
stick, right? It's all about you who masters that.